I'm Narelle Todd.
And I'm Essie Susan Smith.
We are the self-publishing author and marketing duo that has sold over 2 million books. But we didn't start out knowing how to sell books. Fast forward past many failed promotions and a lot of lessons learned, you will see how we went from self-publishing newbies to hitting the New York Times bestsellers list and making the USA Today bestsellers list 19 times and counting. We created the Get My Book Out There podcast to give you simple yet effective marketing strategies to increase readership and book sales, so you know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, as well as some tips for staying mentally and physically well.
Let's get started.
Hey everyone, we're back this week and we are talking content for our newsletters.
This is something that I really feel is important. As we discuss it, you'll find out more and more why you should definitely have at least one newsletter a month going out.
Yeah, and in another podcast, we're going to actually talk about the details and the specifics and mechanic of a newsletter, like things like, how often should I send? Is there such a thing as sending too much? So we're going to look at that in just a podcast on its own because there's so much that we can look at there. But today we want to look at the actual content. So what do you put in a newsletter? Make it something that people actually want to open, because that's the trick, obviously. It's not just to send out the newsletter. You want people to open and you want, readers to also click your content inside. So once again, we've got 3 tips for you for content. And our first one, Susan, I'll hand over to you. You're a pro at this one.
And that one is put something a little bit personal. A lot of people are like, well, I don't know, how much personal should I put in? There's a fine line, and there is a way to put personal without becoming too personal. You don't need to let them know everything that you've eaten and done for that day or that week or that month. My favorite is adding a lot of photos because, as they say, photos are 1,000 words. For me, I love taking photos. Nowadays, with having a phone, you can have your camera with you and take snapshots of moth that landed on a flower, to the bee, to the birds, to a really pretty flower, to an amazing sunset. So these are all things that my readers, because it's something that I do write a lot about, is being out in nature, and it helps build the world around me. A lot of times I go into nature to help build the actual worlds that I'm creating. One of the things I do is I take a lot of photos when we were out on hike, when I just go to the pond and there's Splash, the baby alligator. These are things that readers actually find very, very interesting. And you can include those and add information about what's going on, naming Splash and finding out, oh my God, we got a baby alligator in the pond, which is really cool. Another thing is my husband does astrophotography. And so I love sharing his photos. They're very unusual. I never imagined that space could be so beautiful. I love the fact that whenever I'm always driving him crazy going, do you have a new picture? Do you have a new photo that you're processing? And then once he does, it's like, okay, where's the data on? I want to know a description on it. You could tell his love for what he does when he writes that description, because it's very technical, but it's also very, very interesting. And so I love sharing that. And that's a part of my life. It's very personal to me, and it comes across. And again, having him do the space photos and me write sci-fi kind of goes in together.
So it's finding the level of personal sharing that you're comfortable with. Does it necessarily have to be like, are you sharing something personal about yourself just to share something personal, or should it be something that's related to the genre you're writing in? So for you, science fiction, romance, paranormal romance, kind of goes with space pictures and those sorts of things. Does that matter?
It doesn't really matter, but you'll find that a lot of the things that are interested to you in your personal life are reflected in your books. And for me, being out in nature, being out in the woods, going for a hike, seeing the wildlife. You'll find that a lot in my stories. For example, pets in space. That's pets. It's got animals. It's out in the woods usually, and we're out in space. Generally, you'll find the things that you're very interested in will kind of overflow to whatever you're writing about, for your personal. If you love to cook, you may have stories where there's a lot of cooking involved, and that may be part of your branding, part of your genre. Don't be afraid to share those great recipes and ask readers to help share the recipes that they love. You know, we're all always, especially right now, looking for a great new something to eat.
Yes. So it's one way or an extension really of your brand. You take something that's personal to you, but also in your books, part of your brand.
And family. For me, there's the family, there's the friendship, the camaraderie. All of that comes through in that personal part. You know, I share with them what's going on in my daily life, the things that I found interesting or fascinating that I can't wait to share with them. I tell them what I'm working on, a work in progress that the story I'm currently working on, or one that I've just released.
Our second point is books, obviously. A couple of things here. The most obvious one is you would want to be promoting your new release in your newsletter. Is there a way to provide content about your new release, or is it just book cover and a blurb and, here's the buy links?
For me, I like to tell a little bit about it. Sometimes just having the book cover and the blurb is enough. Other times you may want to add a teaser, a little bit from the book, especially if it's, one that you've been doing for the new release, or it's not necessarily that it has to be a new release. It could be one that you've had out that people may not have known that you've written, or that they haven't thought, I'm not sure I want to read that series. And you go ahead and say, listen, if you haven't read this series and you've really enjoyed all of these other ones, you might like this one. Make it a little personal. Why? I cannot tell you how many conventions I've been to where we're sitting around and readers will ask me about my books and I'll start telling them about them. And then the next thing I know, they come by my table and they're like, I had to get this book just listening to you talk about how excited you were about writing it and about the characters and everything. I had to read that book. I've had some of my YA book, which have the same flavor of my adult books, and they don't have the more central scenes in them, but it still has that same action, adventure, family, relationship, friendship, and the hint of romance that's building. Readers who have just, they're like, oh, that's YA, I don't read that. And then they're like coming up to me and grabbing me by the arms and going, oh my God, when's the next book coming out? I read this because I was desperate and just devoured it. I can't wait for the next one.
Yes, your Dust series. And then it's like, I need the third book.
New books, new releases, or books that you've already got out. Don't be afraid to chat and talk about them.
Yes, definitely. I would agree with you that the newsletters are never just about a new release. I think we should always be talking about your backlist and what other books you have, audio, what books are out in audio, because that's such a popular way to, consume books these days too. So talking about even just a newsletter just on the audio that you have.
And I'm working on animation. So soon some of my books will be out in animation, audiobooks, foreign releases, and videos.
Seasonal promotions is another one. So whilst it may seem a bit, trite, but I still think it's worth it to do, say, like Thanksgiving promos if you've got a book centered around that, or Christmas, Valentine's Day. Room in your newsletter to actually address holidays or special days if your books fit into those.
That book that goes with the holiday, you've got that build up and you want to just escape into it. You want to embrace it. When you can find a good book that's surrounding with that holiday, take, for example, my Dragling's Christmas story. I released that in July and did it as a Christmas in July release, and it made the USA Today bestsellers list. A lot of people are like, a Christmas book in July. Sometimes you just want to escape. Don't be afraid to try to think outside of the box when you're putting stuff into your newsletter.
And if you think of, say, Christmas, think of Hallmark and all the movies that come out at Christmas time. I think there's 50 something appeared on my Netflix account. I was just going, oh my gosh, there's all these Christmas ones. And it's like, I've had enough Christmas. And then of course you start watching one and then you watch another one and then, and so it goes on. And books are the same.
Or just because they get you in that mood or what, but it's just like, you want more. It's like, okay, it's like, I can remember the Christmas that I got addicted to watching B-rated snake movies. And I spent the whole day watching B-rated snake movies. And it was like the best Christmas.
So no matter what you may think, I think it's still go with the marketing and the research that big companies have done. So Hallmark obviously have done their research. They know that people are going to watch Christmas movies at Christmas time. Learn from that and say, okay, well, I've got some Christmas scented books. I'm going to join, even though you may think it's silly or, people are over Christmas. People obviously are not, because big companies in their research have shown that. So adapt that to your own newsletter. and share those seasonal things. And our third one is to share the love. So to spotlight other authors.
This is a big one. I'll deal with authors first. Authors don't think to say, can I be in your newsletter? I think because we're kind of shy. So it's like you feel like you're being kind of pushy if you say, hey, would you mind doing a newsletter swap? Or would you mind putting me in your newsletter? These are the kind of books I write and they're a lot like yours. And the thing is that readers always looking for their next new author. They're always looking for their next great story to read and get lost in. When you're able to share that, it just opens the door for them. Oh my gosh, now I've got another author to read. Yay, I'm so excited because this is a great story.
Yes, absolutely. And I think some of the best sales and the best way to get into new markets is often through collaboration with other authors.
The fact that they spotlight this author and then the readers, they'll say, oh, you recommended this author in your newsletter. I read him and I absolutely loved him. And then other readers are going to see that and they're going to say, well, if this person really loved it, I know we like to read the same books because we talk about it. So I want to go check this author out now.
Sometimes I hear authors talk about other authors as competitors, whereas I say within the book space, I don't think there's such a thing as a competitor because, readers are so voracious. They will read new ones. It's not like, say, you're buying a fridge and it's like you're just going to buy one fridge and that's going to last you for years. People aren't going to buy one book and then that's going to be it for years. They're buying books literally every day. So, some people may need to just change how they view other authors from being competitors to being collaborators. And there's real power when you do.
Definitely. And don't undermine your own belief in your stories. That's so important if you don't believe in your stories, how are you going to convey to your readers or to other new readers that they need to check out your books? And so don't be afraid about asking an author, hey, if you're in a group and you know that you write the same thing, and granted, you may want to stay within the same kind of branding, but even if it's a really great book and it's not in a genre that you normally read, a lot of readers, they read across. I know with myself, I don't read just one type of book. I like reading multiple kinds. Don't be afraid to also kind of share outside of the box.
So our 3 tips for content for your newsletter. So if you're struggling with, what do I write? And you sit down in front of your computer. First off is you're going to want to do something personal. So put something in there at the level of intimacy that you're comfortable with and letting people into your personal world. The second tip is around promoting your books, obviously. So it's not just new releases, it's all kind of books. So it could be audiobooks or translations. Do seasonal promos, definitely. And our third one is to share the love and spotlight other authors as well.
All of that, you've got your newsletter all made.
It's as easy as that. 3 points. Okay, everyone. Well, that's our tips for today. So we will catch you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Have a great one, everyone.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. We've got way more information we want to share with you to increase your book sales. So please come and join me at facebook.com. Get my book out there.